Welcome to 5 Dubs by MDDC Press. I'm your host, Rebecca Snyder, the Executive Director of the Maryland, Delaware, and DC Press Association, which represents news media in our region. 5 Dubs focuses on the who, what, when, where, and why of local news media. We'll talk with the journalists about the stories behind the news. You can find more information about our guests in the show notes or on our website, www.5-dubs.com. Welcome. Today we're mixing it up a little bit and talking to Patrick Brannan of the Daily Record about the best move that the Daily Record accomplished in 2022. In 2023. I'm getting my dates all mixed up. This our topic of discussion was prompted by the Maryland, Delaware, DC Press Association's contest, where we honor the best work of the preceding year, in this case 2023, and one of our categories is best moves. So welcome, Patrick, and I can't wait to hear about the best move. Tell us a little bit more.
Well, good to be with you. So with the Daily Record, we've had a long history of recognizing women leaders, first starting with our Maryland's Top 100 Women, which I think is getting close to 30 years. This might be our 29th year coming up in May. And then we launched Leading Women, which recognizes those 40 and under. So for 2023, we sort of thought about tying this together with what we call Empowering Women, which is aimed at the organizations and companies and firms that sort of lift and help empower women, really support those women leaders and things like that. So that was our first year with that. We rolled it out in conjunction with our Women's Leadership Summit, which we've done for a handful of years too. So it sort of just builds off of our long-standing track record of recognizing women and women leaders in business and law and all across the state and everything.
And that is a lifetime's track record, nearly 30 years of recognizing women across the state of Maryland. That's huge. And so what kind of prompted you, because women now are in stronger positions of leadership. They are, we can argue about the pace of change for sure, but what makes empowering women so timely? Why is the topic still important?
Well, I think, as we've all seen over the last several years, especially, the Me Too movement and, sort of all the gender, equal pay discussions, and, it's just a wide variety of things. But specifically for us, it is sort of that history and tradition and track record that the Daily Record has done a lot of. When we were researching the 25th anniversary of Top 100 Women, which unfortunately got a little interrupted because it happened during the COVID year. Sure. We had huge plans for a big, live in-person celebration with that. But as far as we could tell, we were among one of the first, if not the very first, organization in the state that really recognized women. And we just sort of felt with the Empowering Women, it was time to recognize those organizations and events that have done, or in companies that have done so much in lifting them up. And we had tremendous success. I think we had nearly, 50 or so nominations and applications that came in, and finished with a little bit more, than 30 that we actually recognized in the first year, which I think says a lot.
That is, I do feel like that shows your ability to get the word out in the business community and pull those nominations in. How were they evaluated? Tell me a little bit about that judging process.
So they completed an application, and trying to remember exactly, but there was a lot of questions, sort of what have they done to elevate women? I can't remember if we exactly specifically asked, but many of them would tell us, the number of women, in their leadership positions and things like that, to sort of look at that. And then we kept it internal for the first year where we judged. Looking forward, it may be that we continue to grow and bring in some of those women, because we do a lot of that with some of our other events. We tend to bring in past winners to help us evaluate those. And it may be, and one of the other neat things about this program, that when we developed it, we actually developed it in a way that we rolled it out to our entire, parent company too, Bridge Tower Media. So a variety of markets across the country have now picked this up and sort of run with it too, which I think says a lot.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's not just the Daily Record's best move, but it's the best move for the country in general. Because how many publications is it now working in?
Um, I don't know the number off the top of our head. I think Bridge Tower recently, our parent company now has, maybe we're in 30 different markets.
So that's
Um,
a lot. That's more
yeah,
than.
and I would say, I know it's been in Pennsylvania, New York has done it. Um, our South Carolina markets are picking it up. I've actually noticed, like, they're actually having their lieutenant governor, who is a woman, speak at their event around it, and things like that. So it's been kind of interesting to see how other markets have picked it up and done their own little pieces with it, and
Sure.
everything.
Now, do you think as companies kind of grow and change, like how do you feel the role of women is changing within those companies? Were any threads or themes that you could pull out from the awards and the nominations?
Um, I mean, I think the biggest thing is it's just been interesting, and maybe because we're based here in Maryland and we're so focused with that, but it's been very interesting to see really the rise, and with a majority of companies in the state, like, there is more of a focus in elevating women and really um, looking at that. To me, I know, and partially just because, since we deal a little bit with business and law in our coverage. I feel like there's been some transitions in the financial industries,
Sure.
especially locally.
Hmm.
And a lot of those people that sort of come in as the top person in our region have been women. I think of, like, the Janet Currys at Bank of America, and many of those other financial institutions. Seem that when men have retired, it's been a woman that sort of has come in and replaced them.
Oh, that's interesting. And so, also, I think it's important to note that your publisher at the Daily Record is a woman, and it's a
Mhm.
very, I feel like it's a very woman focused place. How does that play into that best move?
Um, Well, again, I think with just our track record of, recognizing women and being a big part of that. Like you mentioned, Suzanne's been here. I think she's been here like almost the entire time of Top 100 Women, um, with that, and seeing that grow, across the board. We were actually just I was in another meeting having a conversation, and I remember and it's interesting to see how the people take that and are, honored to be recognized by us. When the former president of Towson University left last year, or got named as the University of Louisville president,
Hmm.
um, like, when I went to her bio page, essentially was all about, what she'd been recognized through the Daily Record and the Top 100 Women and all this other stuff. Um, I actually kind of got tipped off to that because a TV station in Louisville must have seen that and reached out to us, to ask about that, you know. So I was like, oh wait, so this is going to happen? Like, she's getting named the president of another university and everything. So it's good to see that in the community and around the state, people are really picking this up, recognizing it. You see it all over their LinkedIn profiles.
Hmm.
Um, so the community and those being recognized, feel that it certainly is a big recognition and an honor. For example, I would say with our top 100 women, which we're currently going through the process of judging and figuring out the group for this year, we get close to 300 nominations and applications for that every year,
Mm.
which I think speaks a lot to the volume of how that moves along and has grown.
Absolutely. And I think it's interesting that, you've kind of set this Empowering Women event against the backdrop of all these individual awards. So top 100 women, it doesn't really matter where you work. It's not a company award. It's an
Mhm.
individual award. And same thing with Leading Women, which is your under 40 event. But then you also, just trying to think of the other, can you contextualize the landscape of other events that you have? Because I feel like, aren't most of them individual awards? Is this your first sort of company wide awards event?
Yes, it is. I guess you could kind of throw in. We do a program called Reader Rankings, which is kind of like one of those best of things that
Hmm.
that can recognize companies to an extent. But this is probably the biggest and really our first for specifically just organizations. Um, Many more of our events are the individuals, like our leaders in law, um, influential Marylanders,
Hmm.
icons, most admired CEOs, um, those type of things. Although we also have been moving a little bit more into the company side. We do another one we started last year and have continued is best companies. Um,
Okay.
which looks at the workplace and things like that. That's We do that in conjunction with another sort of division inside Bridge Tower. Um, there's a lot more surveys and data that's involved in that. Um,
Yeah, I feel like when you're working with companies as an individual, you can, you fill out your application and you kind of recollect, but filling out an application for a company is more of a collaborative effort. So, do you how is it different when you focus on a company as opposed to an individual for an award like this?
um, I would say we're really looking at, say, the track record,
Hmm.
and just especially in a case with the empowering women is, you know, say how long have they been working to elevate women and lift women up and sort of you know move them move them forward, or whatever, versus where it's an individual, it is much more focused just on them, like what have you done individually, personally, how connected have you gotten in the community.
Hmm.
um, where with the companies it's interesting to see, for the number of years that they may have been really focused on elevating women, bringing women in, and then having them climb the ladder, so to speak, learn all the different roles and
Hmm.
everything to move up into the leadership, or vice versa, and things like that.
And so, I wanted to learn a little bit more about the event itself. I know you honored about 30 people. What was attendance like? Tell me about the event itself.
Yeah, so it was last year, and I think in moving forward, looking ahead, our event will be again in the fall. Um, this year, we combined it and did it in conjunction with our Women's Leadership Summit.
Hmm.
Um, and basically, between these two events, it was a half day. And our Women's Leadership Summit is an opportunity where we bring together our top 100 women winners groups and our leading women group and kind of get them together for networking. But then we also have a keynote speaker looking at a particular topic of interest, and then a couple breakout panels around different topics um, for that day. And then we switched over to sort of more of our traditional recognition event where each company was announced on stage. They would come up and receive an award um, for that highlighted. Um, we did a separate glossy magazine for
Hmm.
the recognizing and profiling all the empowering women winners. Um, so that was follows along in what we do with our traditional events. But it was good to kind of see those two events paired together, especially
Yeah.
the women's focused. And um, the attendance was very heavily and well attended. Um, and, a lot of it did tie in with, very interesting in the sponsorship level with people, companies that were being recognized were very interested in supporting themselves and uh, the people that their leaders and things like that. So I think people came for both events on
Mhm.
both sides. So it was good.
Well, it sounds like it was an award or recognition that was really important to companies if they supported it with sponsorship dollars, if they supported it by sending women to the leadership summit, which is kind of a different, like that's a time commitment when you're when
Mhm.
you're asking someone to spend basically an entire half day and into the evening with the event. It sounds like people were really energized by that content.
Yep.
I'd like to talk a little bit about what's happening this coming year. So it sounds like, it's not a one and done. How do you, how do you grow and evolve an event like this, especially if you're looking at sort of the longevity and the track record? Can the same company win it year after year? Do they have to do something different? Or you still figuring out how you're going to manage that?
Um, we're still figuring that out a little bit. I would say that for most of our recognition events, we tend to sort of say like it's not the same company every year or same
Right.
person every year. For example, like our top 100 women, you can win that up to 3 times. When you win it the third time, you move into what we call the circle of excellence. But you can't win that back to back years,
Hmm.
which partially we do that because we want to see that sustained effort, and sort of work in the community and things like that. So while we haven't officially said that we're going to take that similar approach, with companies or something, an event like this, I would think we would follow a similar model since we tend to do that.
Hmm.
Um, but um, it's hard to say. Like if the success of this and the interest in this continues to grow, it needs to break off and be its own event, as you were kind of talking about with that time commitment. Um, it might need to be say an evening recognition event or something,
Hmm.
and not connected directly with the Women's Leadership Summit
Hmm.
um, or things. But we'll see. Nominations are open for this year. We haven't really started pushing it and marketing it, but we'll probably be doing that in the next several months and going from there to see just how it does continue to grow
Yeah.
and move
Well, and I
forward.
wanted just to, and I know our topic really today is your best move, but let's bring that best move and connect it back to what the Daily Record does every day. And you run, or you, as in the global Daily Record, you run a ton of events. What's the strategy? How do you use events to either foster community or build brand recognition, or you know create deeper connections? Like, what's the strategy behind events and how it relates to your coverage?
Um, yeah, I mean, events are a very large part of uh, our brand and our recognition. Um, uh, and as I mentioned, we did a great job of pivoting during the pandemic and stuff of figuring out because the majority of them were in person, but we figured out how to pivot, switch those to an online virtual type event, which I think has been turned out to be really good because we now have that in our kind of back pocket.
Hmm.
So sometimes depending on what the event is, we may go and say, oh, we're just going to do this as an online or virtual event. Um, we launched another one last year looking at veterans in business and law that
Hmm.
we just said that's just going to be an online only event and not an in person. Um, but we really we do focus and do these recognition events in sort of our key areas, such as the leaders in law for law, the string of women's ones that we have talked about and recognized, um, business around the CEOs. And then we sort of can kind of tie those all together with our influential Marylanders, which I think that recognizes people in I want to say around a dozen different categories.
Hmm.
And that's always a very popular and big event for us, and also well attended and sort of gets a good buzz going. And then our business icons, um, one that sort of recognizes those business leaders 60 and older. Um, so the events are a very big part of our, not only our strategy, but also our entire company's you
Hmm.
know, strategy. But um, and I think you see a lot of that in the market too. There's a lot of recognition events, but
Sure.
we've been doing this for quite a while in a variety of different areas that connect very well with our sort of coverage areas and things like that. Um, we don't necessarily call them our recognition events, but we also launched within the last 2 or 3 years what we call power lists,
Hmm.
which we look at topics in particular industries and things like that. Like we've done a lot of where we've broken down law into different categories and things like that, and we recognize say 20 to 30 people or a couple. Usually that comes out once a month, and we rotate that throughout the year.
Hmm.
Um, so we do a lot of these sort of recognition honors, and then we get to profile the people and
But you're also
companies.
putting out a daily paper. So, how do those events kind of interplay? In some ways it feels like, the business and legal community is made up of individuals and people. And so by highlighting these things in recognition, you're connecting people to the coverage, and you're, creating strengthening sources and things like that. How do those events kind of feed the coverage and vice versa?
Um, well, I think like you kind of hit on it a little bit, just building that community and getting to know the individuals and the people. Um, then as we may be working on a story or a particular topic, it's like, oh yeah, like we recognize this person, and maybe that's a good person that we could reach out to as a source or to talk about or something. Um, and depending on what types of stories we may be doing, we can hear about stories from some of the winners,
Hmm.
because a lot of the events, there is networking time and things like that. So it's always good to kind of just visit and get to know people, and you hear what's going on uh, out in the community, and different things. You learn about what businesses may be doing and trying to do,
Hmm.
um, which sort of all plays together. So I think it just helps us build the community, build our brand, um, and connects us with people. And like I said, we certainly feel like, and we sort of see it throughout social media, and think people like to highlight when they win one of our
Sure.
recognition awards. You see that, um, that they take pride in that. Uh, well,
That's
which
true.
which I think is good and speaks nicely for us. So,
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's a highly coveted honor. It sounds like. So, is there anything else that you want to add about either empowering women or the Daily Record in general? It strikes me that some of our listeners may not really know what the Daily Record, who the Daily Record is, and what they do. So, maybe a little sum for that.
yeah. So the Daily Record, it's a, a newspaper that's been around for more than 130, I think almost 135 years, um, uh, and focused on the legal and business, um, state government, are sort of the big areas that we really focus on. Um, I always tell people when we're talking to a new person or someone interviewing with us. Um, while we see the Sun and Banner as competition in the Business Journal, we're going after slightly different audiences,
Hmm.
in some ways, so that we know sort of um, our niche audience of it might be more on the law side or things like that. Um, but yeah, that's like I said, we've been around for more than a century, and um, have been well established, and people know us and see us uh, and all that good stuff. So
Yeah, so it sounds like this best move kind of resonated with your community. It sounded like it had a lot of great support, and helped support your news gathering and your brand, and your efforts to build community in the state. So it sounds like a terrific best move. Good luck. This is an audience participation judging, and so we will be announcing the winner of the best move category at our conference in May. So look forward to seeing you there, and hope to hear about your best move for next year
yeah,
coming up soon.
Yes.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to 5 Dubs with Rebecca Snyder. Please subscribe and leave us a 5-star review wherever you download your podcasts so that others can find us. What do you want to know about local journalism? Email me at rsnyder, SNYDER, at mddcpress.com. Interested in supporting our podcast and journalism? Please donate to our 501c3 Press Foundation. Find out more and see the full episode list and show notes at www.5-dubs.com.